Hey everyone, Dr. John here. Today I want to explore some of the foundations of existential psychotherapy, at least a approach to that. One of my arguments in this approach or points of discussion is that there isn't one particular way you can approach this work. In addition, there's also many variations of existential psychotherapy. For instance, there may be a existential psychodynamic perspective. There might be an existential humanistic one, existential transpersonal, and others. So I'm presenting just a few basic ideas of the model, what I think are some of the central tenets to be incorporated into a existential psychotherapy. And again, my aim on this channel is to be very brief and open up the door for further exploration in other videos. So we can think about the existential therapy model as naturally being rooted in existential philosophy. And the aim here is to help individuals confront those inherent challenges of human existence. Some of these core tenets are freedom and responsibility, meaning and meaninglessness, isolation and connection, death and mortality, authenticity, anxiety, the here and the now experience. So let's just give a few points about each of these themes, and then we'll unroll further content on them in future videos. So with freedom and responsibility, there's a relationship here between making choices and then accepting the consequences of those choices. I think this is a really important realization to have, in the sense that really it's up to us, it's up to the individual in their life to make uh, each and every choice, and therefore own the responsibility for that choice. So we're talking in a very general sense. I get that. There might be some situations where extreme situations where maybe a court of law determines that somebody was acting out of a state of psychosis, where maybe they weren't necessarily in control or responsible for some action that they did, but that's very complicated, and we're not talking about that type of situation here. So, with freedom, we have the responsibility to accept what comes, what consequences may come of that, good, bad, neutral, and also to not make a choice has a potential consequence of existential anxiety or eventual despair, in my view. So, we must accept that duty that we have to make choices, and we'll from there we'll explore, well, the importance of meaning and meaninglessness. So human beings, I believe, are meaning making creatures. Therefore we really have a longing to exist with some sense of meaning and purpose. And if we're not in touch with that, then we can end up feeling situations like angst, despair, um, can feel very disconnected. So we have to find a way to discover what brings us meaning and purpose. And so naturally, the psychotherapy process can encourage clients or patients or participants to create and discover their own personal meaning, even when we are in spaces of suffering. Third, isolation and connection. So we can think about these on a continuum. Over on one side is isolation, over on the other, a sense of connection. Other existential writers talk about being a part of and apart from. I believe that's Jim Bugenthal's terms. Isolation and connection. So, at a fundamental level, every person is alone, even in our closest of relationships, meaning there isn't necessarily this any kind of physical merger with another being. Maybe in some ways there's spiritual connection, energetic connection, maybe even there's something through the mirror neurons. Our nervous systems have a way of connecting with each other. But I think ultimately at the core of this notion is how we are cast or thrown into this world. That's that sense of, I believe it's Heidegger's thrownness, thrown into this world, maybe without a choice of being thrown in the world. That's, again, a complicated one, philosophical, maybe more metaphysical, where we can think about, is there such a thing as past lives? Is there consciousness that moves from one incarnation to the next? That's a bigger question. But essentially, we're thrown into the world. Therefore, we have to then, address our sense of meaning, purpose, freedom, responsibility, the other givens. But also, ultimately, we exit this world by ourselves, as far as we can tell. So, but being in a space of isolation can really create a sense of longing, a sense of emptiness, a sense of desire for connection. So, I think a good outcome of isolation would be to sublimate or transmute, if that's the right word, or transform that isolation into a drive for human connection. So naturally, therapy can unlock this process by really supporting and encouraging the person to reach out, make those connections, and exist in more spaces of community. Another concept we mentioned is death and mortality. So, awareness of death is very much a main feature of the existential model. We can think about existential model existence, experiencing things. So, naturally, death is the um, opposite of that in a sense. Again, we're not speaking in more spiritual models here. So essentially, we have to accept the finite nature of our existence, somehow make sense out of that, and again, utilize death as a motivator to take advantage of every moment we have um, in this world. I know that's very aspirational, to take advantage of every moment. I don't even know if I like that way I put it, of taking advantage of. It's more like being in the world, being here, making choices, being intentional about your existence, and learning practices of presence, of acceptance, of compassion, of empathy, all of the things that really helps us to connect with other people. Therefore, when next looking at the concept of authenticity, this is one of those words that I think is overplayed nowadays. But in the existential model, we really want to align with our values. First we have to be aware of what our values. What is the hierarchy of my values, and is the actions that I'm taking in alignment with those values? If not, then we've got to get in alignment so we don't end up in that space of despair or end of life, kind of looking back with regrets, not feeling a sense of completeness in life. So we want to discover what that sense of authenticity is for us and embrace it and operate and live from that place. The role of anxiety as part of our existence. So we're talking existential anxiety here, not clinical anxiety. Um, Really, existential anxiety is a normal response to the responsibility that we have to face our freedom, those choices that we have to make, and our mortality. So, what we want to do in therapy is help the person move into that space of anxiety and then therefore use it constructively. I think similar to like death awareness, if we really step into existential anxiety, it's a rich source of energy that might be creative, that might be a sense of motivation, a sense of connection. So really learning how to use what one might think of as maybe a scary thing or a negative thing as a energy source for positives, for creativity even. Lastly, I'm going to mention the here and now experience. So bringing it into the immediacy of the present moment, what is happening in the here and now, not being so caught up in the past, and not really being too forward looking, but really here and now. And one way to really be in the here and now is to utilize the therapeutic relationship as being a space for an authentic encounter with another human being. And then, therefore, we can learn ways of being with that presence of the other, and what can we learn about ourselves in that space. So, really, an important thing to highlight about this model is it's not necessarily focused on reducing pathology or repairing or fixing something. It's more about we're all we're all here together faced with these givens. So then how do we step into that and live with more aliveness, more awareness, more intention, um, live more bravely, establish meaning right in the face of all of life's challenges and all of the fears that we might have. So we're really moving into things. And as we move into things, there's this recognition that things are always unfolding as well. So very exciting awareness. It really motivates me. I've been really thinking about or studying in some way this model for probably over 20 years now, and it inspires me every day. So I'm happy to just share a few minutes with you discussing this topic. So um, we'll keep it going, and I really appreciate your presence here and you're taking the time to think about our existence as human beings and reflect on the ways in which you're approaching these givens. So here, if you want to reach out, leave a comment, give a like, subscribe to this channel if you like this content and would like to hear more and see more videos like this. All right, I'll see you next time.